people play this game for different reasons.
Yeah, I don't think there's inherently anything wrong with someone suggesting something.
Because this became an international
Yeah, it did.
discussion. A draw never took place anyway,
There was
but
no draw in the drawing controversy.
yeah.
Oh.
Sam, you're literally Frodo right now.
He is the hero ever. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gollum's Gamers, where today I'm joined by Ali for the Spotify listener, as we are debuting a new series here on the channel called MESBG Monthly, which Ali and I will be doing together on a monthly basis, no surprise there, where we're going to be covering tournament results from the previous month, looking ahead to tournaments in the upcoming month, and looking at what we think might do well at those events. We'll be going over any recent news, so all kinds of things really. Think of it as like a monthly update video on SBG, the tournament scene surrounding SBG, all that sort of thing is what we are going to be covering. So yes, as part of the news today, we'll be touching on the drawing controversy that exploded last week on all of the Facebook groups, and we'll also be answering a question from the audience at the end of the video. So if there's a question that you would like answered for next month, then be sure to leave it down in the comment section here on YouTube. While you're down there, you can find links to our Instagram and Spotify. And also, please consider subscribing to us here on YouTube, as over 60% of everyone watching isn't actually subscribed. So please do subscribe if you do enjoy all of the MESBG content that we make. So we're going to kick things off by looking back at the GBHL 100s from January, the first of which was Into the West, the 130 player event at 450 points, which we actually did a whole review episode on. So if you did want to go and check that out, our very own Ben Haslam joined us for that one, who was the event winner. So lots of good stuff there. But as you can see, he was using the Garrison of Dale list, but it was the Eagles that stole the show really for the weekend, as our very own Sam Grattan was using them and came in second place. There was also Jakob Krochmal using the Eagles, came in third, but he was also using Ugluck Scouts as well, as it was a good and evil event. You could take one of each. So I think like 5 or 6 of the top 10 were using Eagles.
Yeah.
So
Adam was in fourth with the same combo as
was,
Jakob, wasn't he?
yes,
So,
Eagles and Scouts. Yeah. So for anyone who maybe hasn't seen the review episode, Ali, what would you say the key takeaways were, the headlines following
I,
Into the West?
I think it was the event where we'd all knew monsters had gotten a bit better, but like no one really knew how much better monsters were because while Eagles were the dominant monster list, there were loads of like endless as well that were doing pretty well
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And basically, I think everyone, or at least I did, walked into that event going, "Oh, no, monsters are a bit better now," and they're
Oh
like,
yeah,
"Oh,
dominant
yeah,
three, fine.
it'd be fine. I'll still beat them on the objectives or
Yeah.
whatever not." And then it's there again. Oh no, no, no. They're
No.
much better than it used to be. I still think when we get to higher points, monsters will slightly
I
get
was kind
worse.
of just gonna like interject. Obviously, we'll see at the next event
Mm.
we're going to as well. But I just, 450 points. Like, obviously, Sam also went on the Into the West podcast. Big shout out to the Into the West guys. They also reviewed the event. Obviously, it's a 130 player event. It's huge, and they were sort of touching on this as well. Like 450 points. It is a very unique sort of points level where our Eagles may be going to do as well, not even too much higher. Obviously, we'll come on to at the next event. They still did pretty well at like 600, but I
Yeah.
wonder how much of this was
But but
not.
the interesting thing is from last edition, it used to be high model count hordes dominated the top table. So you get
Yeah,
usually with a good general put in. So you get Lake Town with 4 in, or you'll get Goblin Town with a Goblin King, or so all of these ones. They didn't really like
no,
dominate.
no. It
Um,
was these low count. Obviously, I like
yeah,
scouts, like fairly sort of horde-ish kind of fight.
yeah, you got the 30 model sort of list, but
Like, yeah,
I mean it could be because people don't own the models. I think the only horde list was that I knew was around the top tables was the
user.
oh, what's the new world? Yeah, the usurpers.
Usurpers, yeah. Now, everyone
Yeah.
thought going into the event that that might have actually done kind of better. I was hearing lots of grumblings
Mm.
on that, but just maybe not many people had it painted up. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think loads of people had it. Like, so Will was the only one that
Yeah,
I think there was one or two others, but they'd kind of, I would say, looking at how nicely painted their armies were, I think they were going for more the painting hobby aspect.
Yeah, so fine.
Than,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like, obviously people didn't know the extent of the monsters and like how to really, obviously with the Eagles list, it's got like the screech rule, so maybe not too sure exactly how to play against it. Obviously, it's like a new thing. So these best practices maybe haven't been discovered as much yet. So I guess the first event essentially after all these new lists have come out is maybe where you'd see something excel that it might not do in a year's time as much maybe.
Do you know the more important news though is that it means since the league started again after the pandemic, a Gollum's Gamer has won Into the West for every year since.
Come on,
Still.
baby.
And we've even gone first, second at the last 2 years.
Is it 3 years running now?
Four. Because I won it, then Jay won it twice in a row, and now Ben's won it.
Yes, of course, yes. Well, you weren't on the team when you won it.
We didn't have teams at that point.
We didn't have teams. He would have been on the team had we shot. Okay, nice. Yeah, so 4 years running. Biggest event in the UK, is it?
Biggest, what I'd say, non-international. Ardacon possibly still.
Sure. Okay,
can
right.
take that
sure.
claim,
okay.
but
yeah. So yeah, into the West. I mean, Ben obviously doing very, very well with Dale. The point and shoot with the the wind lance and the bows. And I guess wasn't he saying on the on the review that the scenarios just fit really well for it?
Yeah. Like the 6 and eyes we've got at the moment, if you've got a heavy shooting list, which Dale does very well,
yeah,
you're loving life. And also they hit pretty hard in combat because of their +1 to wound.
Yeah,
like value 4.
Yeah,
and so realistically, you're gonna be beating most lists. Like I played a Dale army list, but I had Army of Gothmog, which was half designed to take on Dale.
Why you took it?
Yeah. But then Dale can beat the Eagles. Ben goes into this more. It's not necessarily a slam dunk, but because you have the wind lance and you've got the shooting and reasonable courage and stuff like that, you can beat the Eagles, which is what he did in his last game, I think.
30 models, pretty good as well. And Ben's used Dale a lot, but it was kind of like the perfect storm in a sense.
Yeah.
And like, was there another Dale in the top 10?
I think there was. It was definitely one of those ones where there were quite a few hanging around because I know
good scene.
Like I was on sort of top tables because I think
that's
there's about 3
that's
or
where
4.
I hang out.
Even with the trash army of Gothmog, as everyone said.
Oh yeah.
Which ironically beat all of the lists that I think were going to do well going in, which was like Arnor and Dale and
ironically
sort of like Rohan. And then I ended up playing Ents 3 times, which is where I got like a win, a draw, and a loss kind of thing. So
monsters were good, baby.
Yeah.
So into the West, if you wanted kind of more in-depth analysis on the tournament, we did a whole review. I'm not sure we're going to be doing reviews for like every tournament, every kind of big GBH 100, but I think in this early point in the edition, people are kind of interested in seeing what did well and why, so we may do more of them moving forward. So that's going to do it for Into the West. So we'll move on to the next GBH 100, the only other one in the month of January, which was Gondor in 60 seconds. Now, I believe this was the first GBH 100 held like in a particular region. Was it like the Northeast or?
That's it. It was in the Northeast. So I may get this wrong. I think it was Middlesbrough, but so it's one of the furthest north outside of Scotland. Sort of GBHL sort of events locations we had. So
that there's been
I think it's their first year doing it, and maybe their second. I can't remember.
Okay. Maybe first year's 100. Yeah. So now this was the event that had the draws controversy surrounding it, but we'll be talking about this in our news segments. We'll just be focusing on the actual event here. So in first place was yet again Jakob Krochmal, who came third Into the West. So first 2 100s, and he's been on the podium for both. So a great start to his 2025 campaign. He was using Minis Morgul for the YouTube viewers. That is the list he was using there on the screen. Then in second place, we had Dave Farmer. No surprise seeing him there with Men of the West, a 30 model Men of the West list with King Elisar and Legolas. Very interesting. And then in third, Mr. Stephen Denby with the Eagles, as I alluded to. So this was a 600-point event with 5 games, which I found interesting. Personally, I'm really not a fan of 2-day events with 5 games. That is just me. But it was 5 games, 600 points. So the Eagles still doing well at slightly higher points. So what do you think on this one, Ali?
I'll say it's a good thing you don't play other systems because they traditionally only do 5 games.
That
Like
I
over
just feel
two.
that if you can fit in 3 games on the Saturday
Yeah.
and you're still paying for your accommodation and everything to go
Well,
there on the Sunday, so
yeah. The
you
one thing I will say, one, this was a slightly smaller sort of GBH 100 event, and because
it's
I imagine most people are traveling quite the distance,
yeah to
you
get there.
probably don't mind finishing early and sort of being able to get
See,
home at a
I'm just
reasonable
a raw gamer. If I'm getting home
hour.
at midnight on the Sunday, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's
that also means Elliot is like under the age of 28 still, and like doesn't
this
have
man knows
like.
how old I am, folks.
But yeah, no, I'll go in reverse order. Denby getting on the bandwagon. No, he actually used Eagles at Into the West as well, but clearly
But
still
he
good.
ran into the West at Eagle and
Yeah,
into the West, did he?
yeah. I'm pretty sure he did. He can correct me if not. But the Any Heroics captain has clearly
Yeah.
recruited well this year because Farmer and Jakob are both
I
in
actually
Any
didn't
Heroics.
realize that that was an Any Heroics Pokemon. I
Yeah.
actually hadn't clocked.
So anyone who thought the Gollum's games were going to walk it this year with the disbanding of Seventh City
We are. What do you
Crusaders,
mean? Sorry,
um,
I shouldn't make claims on the podcast anymore after what happened that one time. We will say no more. But
but,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I hadn't actually realised it was now. It's probably worth noting that those three probably were the highest ranked players from like
yeah,
last
from
year
last year.
at the event. Like they were, I think maybe like the only players like in the top 20, top 25 maybe from last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um,
I won't correct you if you're wrong, but someone can in the chat that you've gone and offended that you didn't realise was there.
the point is that I think looking at
Yeah,
the attendee list, you'd probably expect those three to finish in the top three, and they did.
yeah.
So
But yeah, Farmer actually messaged me about Men of the West afterwards, and he was gushing about it. He really liked the list. Sort of, I think he said like the buffs and like Aragon's just great, and sort
yeah,
of, yeah, he really liked it. I think he had Legolas and
yeah, it was
Aragorn as his heroes.
I saw his leggy was mounted. I think, which
Yeah.
I thought the way it was with the shooting now was you would take him on foot. I thought that was the whole.
So there is an FAQ question which came up, and Farmer asked me for my opinion, and it seems to be pretty split, which is, can Leggy do his shooting into combat while mounted, like when he is in
Yeah,
combat?
yeah.
Um, like they're both legitimate ways of interpreting the
Yeah.
English language with how the paragraph is written. I err on the you can't, because of
Okay.
like if you look at the way it's written, it's in one chunk, but then
Yeah.
it's basically they got two rules in one sentence, and then like the sort of thing saying you can't do it at the end of the sentence.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, a lack of an Oxford comma makes helps me decide my way. But yeah, so it's a legitimate, could go either way.
Yeah.
So Farmer, I think it was played at the event that you could shoot into combat, and so him being
On
on
the
the horse.
horse. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the way are you on the side of that he can't do it when he's on the horse?
Yeah.
I think that's where I sit as well. Yeah, it's a very long-winded rule. Obviously, they try and make things crystal clear, but sometimes they fall slightly short on that. But obviously, yeah, they're trying their best. But yeah, maybe an FAQ coming. But yeah, I think moving forward, it will probably be he can only do it on foot. I think.
Yeah.
But
And also the other thing I remember him saying in that list, regardless, it gives you a mobile objective grabber because
yeah,
you
'cause it has
don't
no
get
cap.
you haven't got a cap. So
Yeah.
especially when he can still move, shoot, and then like if you do
Yeah.
want, you can dismount him anyway.
Well,
It's
I
just
guess maybe that is a pretty for that particular list a good reason to like in Halls of Thranduil. Like, I'm not sure you would ever take him mounted, providing that you can.
Yeah, no, it's different in different lists, but yeah. So anyway, so Farmer really liked the list. Obviously lowish points, but I think you just
Those
have
two
the
heroes are
tools
pretty
to
good.
deal with everything.
Yeah, and a
And
600, like there's maybe not
yeah,
too much for Aragorn to worry about. He's had a buff to like his ability to resist magic,
yeah.
so that's
He's
nice.
fight seven. He'll kill everything. He's
Yeah,
Mighty Hero is still amazing.
it is. Yeah,
Arguably, you could say it's even better now. You don't have all the cheap free Mighty Heroes who are hanging around.
yeah.
Um, and like he can kill eagles and he can charge eagles and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I think the model count also still got like 30
Yeah,
odd.
yeah, I think it was 30 on the nose with those two heroes, and like he has the turn where he gets up to fight 5. Pretty
Yeah,
nice. Like, you can do some damage with it. Obviously, it's a strength 3 army, but he's gonna be able to do what he wants with it.
yeah. And then I guess moving on to Jakob with minus Morgul, which I think is the evil list most people were excited about
Yeah.
when um the new edition came out.
We ranked it very
Uh,
highly in our top lists
yeah,
videos. If you haven't seen those, go and check those out.
yeah. Like I played Into the West. I played Minas Morgul with my dwarves, and they do hit hard. Like hitting on courage when it's
Yeah,
just like
yeah,
6, 7 point orcs, whatever they
yeah,
are, is quite scary.
yeah,
Um, the one thing I know, so Danny, who I played at Into the West, sort of, he had quite a few Morannon orcs sort of scattered around, which is what Jakob's got here as
yeah,
well. Um, it's kind of one I think in a lot of this early shooting meta that we've got,
mhm,
having D6 with strength 3 bows, just having that resilient line's quite good.
yeah.
Um, natural strength 4 is good, but also if you are facing men, it gets you up to fight 4.
Yeah. He
Which
doesn't have many of those though, which I found interesting. Obviously, he's got the model count to 42,
mm,
which is super, super nice. But obviously, he's got
yeah,
the two warbands there for the Spotify listener with the Orc Captain and the Taskmaster that is literally just Mordor Orcs. So obviously, they're still wounding on the courage, so like they can still do some damage, but just yeah, in terms of like the lower fight value, obviously they are the same fight value, but the potential for fight for with the Morannons
yeah.
and the lower defense as well. I thought like maybe you drop to 40 models and you get more Morannons, but like
I have a feeling Jakob here has just taken 8 man and Orcs with Shield as a front line in the way, like just for both.
yeah, yeah. So you put
Um,
everything behind that, and
yeah.
then yeah,
The Taskmaster is an interesting shout. I haven't seen him in a whole edition, but his rule still works the same, I'm guessing. So 4+
yeah,
march and moves. So,
yeah. I'm not sure if there's
um,
been a buff. I will check on that. Can check on that.
but yeah, as we said, very high model count. Got a couple of specters. It's kind of like an old school list, but you're hitting on with like the magic and the pulling around and stuff. So,
Yeah.
um,
Did he
and
the Taskmaster? Sorry, yeah, it's the same on a 4+. Did he only have like one wound before
no, he had two.
attack? Was he?
I'm
He's
pretty
now
sure
two
he's the
attacks,
captain.
2 wounds. Yeah, yeah, 2 attacks, 2 wounds. He's now 45 points. Was he 50 before?
Yeah, something like that.
50.
But,
So yeah,
yeah, I'd be interested. Like, I guess when you've got the two other heroes and you're probably more or less only calling heroic moves with the captains or marches,
yeah,
it can give you like the extra.
yeah.
But
And obviously
the
we
main,
haven't really talked about the Witch King.
I was about to say, the main thing we
It's
haven't covered.
the headline here
Yeah,
with the Morgul Blade, so 210 points. So
yeah.
I haven't played against the Felbeats in quite some time, I must say. So what do you think on how they look?
It is really scary, especially because at the moment the way the rules are written, they get the Witch King gets 5 attacks on the charge because
I
you get
absolutely
+1
love
for the
this.
cav and the
Yes. Now,
+1 for
is that how it was played? Do you know? I'm assuming.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
I haven't double checked. I know it was played that way Into the West because it's pretty clear cut in the rules. It
Right.
just maybe feels a bit weird.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised when we get an FAQ if that did get reversed.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the Witch King magic still it's not an auto click any as much anymore. It's still really good. You can transfix, compel, and all of that stuff. So I mean, if he was playing Stevens Eagles, like you
Yeah.
can just have Gua here constantly going away, so you don't actually have to worry about the screech
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But and also the Fell Beast. Has he got a Morgul Blade? Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Morgul
so
Blade.
you can.
Is it changed at all? The Morgul Blade?
I don't believe so.
No. Okay.
But yeah, no. So you can just stand back, transfix an eagle, do whatever you want,
Oh,
charge it and
you're dead.
kill it, basically. Yeah. So yeah, no. Uh, not surprised this list has done well. I expect it'll be one that we'll see for quite a few events to come.
Yeah, 600 points, 42 models is pretty good when they do the amount of damage they do.
Mm.
Fight for potential Witch King on Fell Beast. Like it's pretty nice at 600. So
Yeah.
obviously you've got the GP coming up next month, so maybe people have seen that this can do well. So perhaps this is something we'll see more of. Okay, so that's Gondor in 60 seconds. So we will move on here to news from the Mark. A very creative name there from myself, I must say. We are going to be looking at the GBHL league standings and also the team standings, which I'm very much hoping will be updated on a monthly basis. Big shout out to Mr. Stephen Denby right there. But also any other news items from across SPG, anything that we feel is relevant to talk about in the news in the previous month or the upcoming month. So I guess, first of all, looking at the team rankings. Now, obviously, these aren't that updated. There's not the Gondor in 60 seconds results on there. But we have Sam Grattan, our very own, in the top spot, along with Ben Haslam, James Goebel, Ashley Walker, and Jay Acharya, all featuring in the top 10, Ali. I think we've got to get ourselves to an event, don't we? Sooner rather than later.
Well, actually, it looks like we don't need to. No, we
True
can take
that.
the
We
year
kind
off.
of have the league on wrap right now. Before the Gondor in 60 seconds event results go on there. I'm surprised Denby hasn't got those up yet, considering his team will skyrocket up the standings.
Yeah, obviously these rankings will become more interesting as the months go on.
They will. There are only 2 events.
Yeah.
And no one is in their teams on there yet either. So, but yes, hopefully these will be updated and we can check in on them along with the team rankings on a monthly basis. So, where did you want to go next, Ali? Should we touch on the drawing?
Yeah, I suppose we should touch on the drawn out
controversy.
We should. So to give an overarching context, the final game at Gondor in 60 seconds, they were streaming throughout the whole weekend, and it seemed to be quite a good stream. Generally from the little bits I catch, not quite as good as when Elliot does Gollum's Gamers, but
shout out, baby. No, I saw the stream.
Yeah,
it was a different type of it was just showing the gameplay rather than like what we did, which was like a sort of me kind of running a stream alongside the viewers. So, but no, it looked good. I liked it.
I will sort of prefix before I do the explanation is no one at the event like complained or had an issue, and like the stuff that people got annoyed about on the internet didn't actually happen in the end. It was more the potential for it to happen. But so final round, there are 2 players on the top table. One of them being Jakob. I don't think I really need to pretend it's not him because he won the event.
He won the event.
But essentially, all he needed to win this event was a draw because he was that far ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
So he'd earned the position basically to not have to go for the win. And then his opponent, Adam Bird, who is also doing quite well at the event, basically, if he kind of wanted anything out of the game, he may have podiumed with a draw. He may have done much better with a win. But it's on stream, and essentially, as the game starts, Jakob's there going, he's only got 6 bowmen. They're playing to the death. They both have banners and generals and stuff like that. Adam moves up and like tries to take advantage of a 6 bowman, and I think there was 1 or 2 turns of that, and then Jakob basically goes, "I'm going to just keep retreating, because there's no point me risking like over sort of strategy here." In my point of view, being Jakob, this game will end in a draw. Do you want to save 90 minutes of our time, call it a draw now, because I think we've reached a stalemate, because you don't necessarily want to play aggressively either and threaten your ability to podium. And at which point we can then call it a draw, then we can just have a more fun game, which will look better on the stream. And then we get to spend 90 minutes actually
playing a fun game.
At which point Adam had a think about it and he went, "No, I reckon I can win this game." But ironically, because Jakob told him his strategy, Adam then changed tack and then just went hell for leather to like attack. It ended up in being Adam ended up losing sort of the game and stuff like that. And so a draw never took place anyway.
There was no draw in the drawing controversy.
But people from the viewers at home kind of got annoyed with the idea that they may have been fixing the result of the event, whereas from Jakob's point of view, he was there going, "This is a stalemate and really boring for the viewers.
I don't I wouldn't like the discussion to be sort of not from us, but from like the wider to be about the fact that it was on stream, because I don't think
I do think the stream had having spoken to Jakob, did play a sort of. I'll be open. I have a particular opinion on this, so like you can disagree with me, sort of people at home if you don't, which is fair enough. But because it was on stream, he felt more pressure to have a fun game, because it's sort of like as in fun in terms of because otherwise it kind of ruins the stream a bit.
I may be
Got,
coming from a slightly different angle then, considering that
yeah.
I run these kinds of streams. But like, I wouldn't want to think that anyone at the table playing a game should feel that they have to play a certain way because the camera is.
I'll be honest, having
their best interest should be what is at their forefront. And
yeah, I'll be honest, having played on the stream, it is a thing that you're thinking in the background.
You had a very fun game on stream, so.
Oh yeah, you know I did, but arguably as well, because Luke, for those who didn't see the imps sort of thing, like he had two options of choices of strategy to play, and I mean I think he rolled a dice for it in the end, but he ended up going for the sort of slightly aggressive high risk strategy,
as I believe he called it.
And like it didn't pay off, but it is one of those things where it is in the back of your mind because
sure
people play the game for different reasons.
And that's what I think that the same decision, the same conversation about the potential drawing of the game due to the stalemate would have happened even if it wasn't on the stream, because they can still just now have a fun game because they agreed that they're at a stalemate.
Yeah.
What's the point of moving back for 90 minutes, just to have the game maybe end in a draw anyway? I think a lot of the controversy or what people were upset at was the fact that a draw was offered. Why would you do that? That's not something you should do. That is unsportsmanlike. That's kind of the disconnect that I have, where he's allowed to offer a draw. I don't think him suggesting something is being unsportsmanlike or rude or anything.
Just to quickly finish out on the stream bit, the sad thing about this controversy is, having spoken to a few of the guys sort of who will often be top tables at events, is they're more likely now to say no because of the way people jumped on like people when they're on stream.
It was I don't know.
So it is one of those things where like people want streams.
Yeah.
You have to also respect the people who are playing the stream, because it wasn't like this was cheating or anything like that, and nothing happened really in the end. But the amount of like anomalous in terms of people that you don't know jumping on, like attacking sort of Jakob for the way he played.
Yeah.
If I was Jakob, and I know a couple of the others at the event have said, yeah, no, next time I'll probably just say no to the stream because it's not worth the hassle. Like as in, so there is consequences to like people jumping
people just,
on.
Like from my side, obviously, like, we've done a couple streams we'd hoped to do into the West. We'd hoped to do the GP as well, but I'm going to be on holiday now, so I can't do that. But, hoping to do more of these streams. But obviously if, lots of the best players, potentially at these events who I'd like to have on the stream could, not want to be on it because of something like this, like that would be unfortunate as a result.
But yeah, it's just one of those things to bear in mind, I guess, when you're on the internet. But going back to the actual, the whole controversy is around stalemate, and is it fixing? Is it not? So there's two situations where stalemates will come up generally. One is when you're in the situation we had at this event where you got one person who's so far ahead. Actually, even that is sort of like, it is really rare. And the other one tends to be when you've got two players who don't want to risk anything.
Yeah.
So for me, when this has come up, I went to the Polish Team Championships a couple of years ago now. And I was part of a team, and I was using Dragon Emperor, and then I got matched up for 2 rounds against other Dragon Emperor players. And then there's a thing where I have a really good defensive position. If my enemy comes towards me, they're probably going to lose the game. If I go out of that defensive position, I will probably lose the game. So because it was a team event where they're going, well, neither of us want to risk it because it actually makes a difference whether we draw or don't, or win or loss. A draw is neutral because you're trying to beat the other team. So we then agreed to call it a draw there and then play out sort of and finish the game and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which obviously I did that at the Team Championships event, and I think it's one of the only times it's ever really come up for me. And that's at a team event, which is a bit different. But in that situation, it was me and my opponent had agreed after a bit of shuffling and stuff like that, going, well, you know what, like neither of us want to risk it. For the benefit of both of us, we're going to enjoy this more.
It's a moment where you kind of just like look up at each other after you've moved the same few models for like 3 turns and you've rolled priority within like 30 seconds of each turn, where you then just you're like, well, what are we doing?
And it's there going, I think it's a bit silly to force someone to play out 2 hours or 2.5 hours or whatever it is of rolling priority.
Of doing that, yes.
the which I think is the point of view that a lot of the sort of defenders of the stalemate sort of in the
There
comments.
have been some
Um,
people even saying that like you shouldn't play in that way where you sit there and you don't engage with your opponent. I've seen
yeah,
those kinds of arguments being
did,
thrown around because it's not in
did,
the spirit of the game and all.
yeah. So this is maybe why I get cancelled. Spirit of the game is a completely like
Oh, but yeah, like
sort of it's a personal interpretation.
yeah,
So to give you an example, I find one of the most disrespectful things people can do is not try during a game to win the game,
yeah,
or get the best result that they can, which may be a draw, it may be a win, it may be just getting a few VPs. When people just give up or don't try, I'm
yeah,
there going, what was the point? Like
yeah,
in like all of this.
yeah.
Whereas other people go, oh, because they're doing like funny, cool sort of stuff and like charging headlong heroically. I'm there going, it's a game which is designed to try and win competitively.
Yeah,
Like as in,
at least at these kinds of events where
yeah,
this sort of stuff is maybe more likely to happen. In our case, GBHL 100s. If you're maybe going to that tournament with the mindset of, oh, I'm going to be just charging in my Rohan cavalry turn one, regardless of whether that's a good or bad thing, because that's a cool thematic thing. A GBHL 100 is probably maybe not the right event to do that at, or you can still do that, but
yeah,
it's events like 80s and things which are
yeah.
designed for that kind of gameplay in mind.
It's one thing that I think people miss as well is the context of in the UK, because this became an international
Yeah, it did.
discussion. We have hundreds, 90s, and 80s. So hundreds are the most competitive sort of like events. So people are going there to win the event. They won't necessarily be fully themed lists, like shooting into combat to try and kill your own guy is a legitimate strategy.
It seems
Um,
what's wrong with that? I don't know.
yeah, but so using within the rules of the game, obviously, to come up with strategies to win the game and thus win the event is perfectly fine. Um, we then have 80s for those weird, wacky events and stuff like that. And even at hundreds, you'll find that usually you fall into your similar
Yeah,
mindset.
yeah, yeah.
But it basically just to kind of bring it all around, it's there going. People play this game for different reasons.
Yep.
Um, like some people will play it to be competitively and sort of play it, and that's legitimate and that's fine, and that's why they do it. Some people will play it in a different way, and that's also fine.
All things are
My,
fine, and they can coexist. I would
yeah,
like to
and they have done for many years.
have. So
Um, and it's just there going like sort of my whole thing is don't tell people how to do their hobby.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't think there's inherently anything wrong with someone suggesting something to another player, and I think that
Yeah,
is part of what people were jumping on, that that thought shouldn't even exist, or that you shouldn't
yeah,
be allowed to do that. People were saying that people should be banned and things like this. Also, final thing I just really want to touch on is that I've seen people say that like you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't suggest that or that shouldn't be a possibility because of the impact of other people at the event. But again, I think, to what you said about it impacting other people's hobby, if, you're going to the tournament, you're allowed to do whatever you feel is in your best interest to try and,
yeah.
place the best you can or get whatever you want out of the event.
I
You've
I do
paid
think
your tournament fee and your accommodation,
yeah,
everything, just like everyone else. So you shouldn't have to be thinking about how that could affect other people. It would be like if you're in a football league or something, and if you draw with your opponent, oh well, then the people in the game underneath
yeah,
you in the league will have a better result. Well, you don't have to think about them; they're in a completely different game.
yeah.
It's not for you to worry about,
It,
and you
it
shouldn't have.
also this is the difference as well between a stalemate and fixing a draw, as it were. Because in the stalemate in this case, I don't know what the exact VPs would have been, but
Mm.
they when you agreed to stalemate, it stopped where it is. So whether it be 2-2 or 0-0 or whatever,
Yeah,
there's a difference between, especially if there's secret objectives on the board, and go, cool. So we're both happy with a draw. You can have like 10 VPs. I'll have 10
yeah,
VPs.
that's
We'll
that's
both get our secret
and like
mission.
also as well, people want to throw around the word like fixing because it's got like a dodgy kind of connotation to it. That they're saying, oh well, we're friends. I want you to go way higher up in the
Mm,
standings, so let's agree to a 10-10 draw. Based on these VPs and everything. That's maliciously like fixing a game.
yeah,
And people turn around and say, oh well, if you're agreeing a draw, that is by definition fixing a game. Which sure, if you want to get into the semantics of it, perhaps. But when you say fixing something, you're trying to make it almost seem much more malicious than it was. And in lots of cases, it is not like that. Yeah.
Anyway, I
I
feel
think
like we've drawn out that
we
conversation
will
long
leave
enough.
it there. But it was a very big topic
Yeah.
indeed. So a hot news from the mark to kick off this segment. There was a couple other small things that we were going to touch on. So there was in Australia, there was a very big event because yes, those guys do play SBG sometimes on
Allegedly.
on tables
I
with
mean,
not
they
as
don't
much
play it very
terrain as
well,
they make seem.
but
But yeah.
but
Um,
actually, the big news from that event, one is the fact turns out Aussie event tables are just as good slash bad as GVHL event tables. Go
I
see
saw.
David Clubley on his one man crusade to point out that
Shout out, Mr.
to all the
Clubby.
Aussies.
Yeah, there were definitely some nibbles on that one from
Yeah.
Mr. Clubbers.
Um,
Yes, but the event itself, it was 850 points. It was like 75 players. I believe it was the second biggest event in Australia. Shout out to the Mountain Goat Boys for their coverage of the event. But yeah, it was Kylie once again winning quite a big tournament over there in Australia with the Battle of Fornost. Fornost.
yeah.
And I believe they looked at all the lists in their video. There were some that had like Erno, Glorfindel, Kierdan, and a captain, but then some of those like dropped Kierdan and the captain for like Aranath.
It is the list which I think partly because of where it's in the PDF we haven't spoken about on the channel yet, and partly because we haven't had a high points event really to sort of talk
It's
about.
850, like that is I was maybe expecting not to see like Glorfindel and Aena mounted because I thought 40 points on the mounts is quite a lot, but
they're both very good.
but
So just to briefly
points.
go over, I don't know whether this list is going to change when the armies sort of a Middle Earth bit comes out, but you get essentially 2 Fight 7 plus heroes on the charge, which is very tasty. So I do think it's going to be one of the best lists once we start getting up higher points with
at higher points.
Yeah.
Even
So
Kierdan like nerfs and things like the Gondor, the Fight 5 D6 charging cav with lances is really not like so good.
So not surprised to see it do well.
Yeah.
Kylie, I mean, she's been around for a long time. It feels like almost as long as me in the UK.
For a minute.
But she seems to be back up on top in Oz. Not that I keep that closer tabs, unless there's some good memeing going on.
They sometimes do some SPG stuff over there.
Yeah.
Oh, that was very loud. So moving on then, I guess the only other thing was that are we hoping for an FAQ next month? Is that something?
Yeah, I don't see
happen?
any reason they wouldn't be.
They haven't. There's been little talk now from GW, hasn't there?
I mean, I have a suspicion an FAQ is coming because I've heard rumors of TOs being asked for questions that came up at their event.
Oh, very.
But not me, by the way. Like just putting out, it wasn't me. No. So I think they'll stick to their February, August sort of FAQ routine.
They always kind of do that. I mean, I was really hoping for maybe some kind of news on the armies book. I think if they're doing the FAQ next month, in February, that is, they'll go, we don't need to release any news this month because that's the thing we're doing in February. So
the FAQ normally drops like a week after the GT or somewhere around there.
Yeah,
which like because then they know all the questions they got asked at the GT. I also wouldn't be surprised if on the GT weekend we did get more information about the armies book.
On that weekend,
it feels like they used to back in the day always do big announcements at the GT and Throne of Skulls, which they haven't done so much this year. But I feel like timing wise it would work that they could go. Here's the front cover of the book coming in the next 2 months or something like
that. Or at least like if not, then like sometime in March. Like if they're doing the FAQ in February, like hopefully March. Some sort of news or something about the armies book would be very, very good. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there for news from the mark, and we will move on to the upcoming events for February. So for the Spotify listener, so we do have one list here that Ali has very kindly put together for one of the events to just kind of give people an idea of if we were going to this event, kind of what would we take, what do we think might do well. So yeah, upcoming events. So we have the Grand Prix first of all, which is what I was hoping to be streaming, but I'm going to be on holiday now, so I can't do that unfortunately. But that is at 600 points. That is a 7-game event. Then we have the Battle for Green Hollow, which I believe is being held in Glasgow. That's at 900 points, 5 games, 900 points, very spicy. And then also the City of Steel being run by Mr. Ali King here, 700 points, 6 games. So did you want to give a small plug for your event?
I don't know. Will anyone watch this before the events happen?
No, this will be going up while the event is going on. And
Yeah.
I guess like an overview of.
Yeah. So it's an event in Sheffield, 6 games, 6 missions, normal armies, with one key exception being everyone gets what I call the King's colours or the Queen's colours. So everyone gets a 6-inch banner, which is treated as a light object, and if you capture your enemy's light object, you get bonus TP at the end of the game, and also their enemy army will suffer -1 to their courage, almost like a harbinger of evil. But yeah, no, should be a good event. 2nd year running City of Steel.
Yeah.
And that was probably the short pitch I should have done when we did the promo video like
maybe
6 months ago.
Maybe
but
yeah, so that is actually going to be happening while this event goes up, or this could be out there before. But yeah, it's happening this weekend. The first.
So if you want to buy tickets, I will accept your money. However,
you can go for day 2.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. But yeah, so everyone gets a 6-inch banner. There's some interesting additions there, combinations and things that you could come up with for your particular list. So that's City of Steel. The Battle for Green Hollow, I believe, is a fairly standard vanilla kind of pack from what I was looking at, just the 900 points, 5 games, standard scoring and all that sort of thing.
I mean, 900 points is probably its unique
I guess USP.
You don't tend to get over 800-point events, so
I think I actually messaged Dewey, kind of asking whether there'd been any discussion like in the league or anything about like moving to slightly higher points, like generally, like not a huge shift or anything, but like whether 900 is the new 800 or something like that. Like
I think it's one of those things which TOs will just sort themselves out as to what they think.
But that mean it just might not happen, like because
it may not happen.
It's going to happen
for 6 months. It may be the second half of the
year. So
yeah, and also like one of the awkward things, like we can mention this now, about once events start getting bigger, often you want extra rounds in. So Will, who runs the GP, generally, I know he personally loves high point events and doesn't like low point events. But because he has 100 players odd going to the GP, tickets still available, I think. There you go, Will, there's your plug. He wants to have 7 rounds to be able to fit his format and like get a natural conclusion of a winner.
So he's high as he can.
So you're kind of locked into like time limit.
That's if you want to go 7 games. Like I think going 900.6 games, like I think is doable.
Oh yeah, that's doable. But again, it's just one of those ones where sometimes it will be to do with how many players you expect to go as well. If you're only going to have 30 to 40 players, 5 games is fine. Once you get to 64 players, that's perfect for a 6-game event. And then once you go higher than that, you're kind of like, oh, should I like Into the West has 7, Ardacon has its championship round, and Grand Prix sort of has its 7 games as well. It's to get that clearer winner.
I like the 900 points. I feel that when I've been writing lists, I'm sure lots of other people have maybe run into the same sort of, not issues, just like things don't really fit the same way as they did, which is fine. It's a change, but just like the list building, trying to fit in certain things at certain points levels is a lot more difficult until you start to go to those higher points levels.
I mean, personally, if I could, without any venue restrictions, City of Steel would be a 1,000 point event or higher. Like, as in, I just think like I love sort of high point games, but yeah, no, it's kind of one of those ones where TOs will work out how quickly games are going now and like whether they can go higher up points or stuff like that. But
so I guess we'll see on that front.
But
But the GP, so this is the list here that Ali has wrote for the GP. So it's worth noting. So it's 7 games. So the first day is 4 rounds, and then on the second day, everyone's split into like pods. So the top 16 players, it was the top 8 last year, but the top 16 will go into like a knockout like pod, although it's not like knockout where if you lose you're out of the tournament. But so the top 16 will play in round 5. Then the top 8 will go through to the next round for round 6, and the top 4 make up a pod. So like one will play 2, or does one play 4? Do you know? Do you know what way around it is?
Wait, so on day 2,
So day
so
2, yeah, like around 7.
so it
You've
so
got
the
a pod
top
of
8
4.
it'd be first versus 8,
Yes, but then
second,
the top
7th,
4, it would
yeah,
be
and then it'd be 1
1v4.
versus 4,
Okay,
if
I didn't know
assuming
if
they
he was
follow
going
their
to do
ranking.
like I didn't know if he was going to do like the top 2
Mhm.
would play in the final. Yeah, I think it might be that the top 2 because it's like the final between the top 2
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
event. Yeah,
Whereas the other
yeah.
pods, as the sun blinds me,
He
um,
said this would happen.
yeah, Gandalf's outside.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure they're just Swiss. Like you don't do the knockout in
No,
the
no.
other pods.
Yeah. So it's just the top 16, then top 8, and then top 4. So
Yeah.
like the
The,
finals. That's why I was hoping to stream that event. That would be really
yeah.
cool.
The other thing to note as well is each round is veto. So you
Yes.
roll 3 scenarios out of the 6, and then between you and your opponent, you get to veto it.
Yeah.
So armies which don't have access to a banner possibly will do better at this event or be less scared because they can go, I'll go for the one which I don't start 4-0 down.
Yeah. Maybe after the GT as well would be match play guide something. Come on,
Maybe.
folks. We can't live with 6 scenarios for this long.
Yeah, we can.
Come
We had
on.
to do it for years. You guys are spoiled. Back in the day,
18.
we
Give
went
me
like
my
2 or
energy.
3 whole seasons with only 6 scenarios. But yeah, no.
Anyway,
So yeah,
so that's the format. Yeah. So Ali's list that he's put together. So something that he thinks could do well at the event. We might sometimes write lists that we would take ourselves, but it doesn't have to be that. Something we think might do well. So what was the thinking here? I've done lots of tinkering around with Minas Tirith as well, I must say.
so I think when I look at an event, I go, what do I reckon is going to be good? And what can I take that can deal with that? So I don't necessarily like to go meta. So it's sort of, I won't, Eagles clearly have been doing well.
Yeah.
Shooting armies have been doing well. So I'm there going, in this list particular, like loads and loads of D6 tin cans are pretty good into Dale or these other lists with strength 3 shooting. Even against crossbows because they get shield wall, D7 means I shouldn't lose that many models and I can march from the captain if I want.
Yeah.
And it's like 600 points, so I want 30 plus models. So this list has got 36 models, so that's pretty solid. I've got a fairly capable hitter these days in Faramir, which also, so I was kind of half thinking, how could I deal with a potential eagle or monster or something like that? And so Faramir and his dudes, the knights, get +1 and fearless when they charge basically within 6 inches of Faramir.
Yeah.
So in my thinking, you can have Faramir safely behind the line, and then turn 2, he can charge in. You'll guarantee everyone gets to charge the monster because they're fearless. They get +1 fight value to Cav. Not relevant against monsters, but could be relevant against like Minas Morgul or maybe not Minas Morgul, some other game. But also, and then Faramir can strike fairly reliably to match at least an eagle. More likely to beat it, and then you can kill one of them a turn. And because they're hanging behind the line, you won't be affected by the screech. That's the vague general idea about it. In practice, it will probably work very different. But it's a resilient tin can list. I've got 2 Citadel Guard with longbows because they can just bodyguard and sit on objectives and shoot some stuff. But they're my only shooting because I'm there going, I'm not going to be able to outshoot a lot of these armies.
Right.
And so
I'm D6, D7 in shield wall.
Yeah, I'll just charge at you and then beat you up in combat.
And you've got the 5 knights, so if you are playing something, where the 5/5 would be, you can do a fair amount of damage, with getting those into the the right fights, and obviously you've got them for objectives and things as well. So,
and got the Guard of the Phantom Court as well for like a nice little hold ground or something objective boost. And then I thought, as we mentioned, because we did review this army in our top 5 video, he's pretty solid as a leader these days.
Yeah, I will say the one thing, like, it's obviously really nice that he can bring the Fountain Court. It is a shame. I love what they've done to Faramir, all the changes and everything. I think everyone's really positive. I just, I'm not that big a fan of the he has to charge rule all the time. I get why it's there, and you don't have to take Denethor. I think if you had to take Denethor, it'd feel a lot worse. Like if you had to be your leader, but you don't have to do that. You can just do this with Faramir as your leader or Boromir at higher points or something like that. But I get why they have the rule there for the thematic reasons. It's just like, you want to take Denethor. He's a really solid leader, but then you take Faramir, and now he can be manipulated in ways you don't want. So.
But I would be fairly confident of after day one, at least making top 16 with this list. And then top 8 is always a bit of a do you get the bad matchups with the GP?
But I think you get 36 models of 600 is nothing to. Obviously, the Minismog will have like 42. Yeah. Fell Beast, but obviously you're higher fight everywhere, you're high defense. So, it's a pretty good spot to be in. So yeah, I think I'll do it for the upcoming events. So I think we are just about ready to close things out. But first, our final segment, which I've cunningly named One Question to rule them all. We will be closing basically each episode with a question from the audience. So I reached out to our followers on Instagram to ask for a question for this first episode. But moving forward, if you do have a question you would like answered next month, then be sure to leave a comment down below. Is it about draws? I'm sure we'll get plenty of those comments anyway, but preferably not about draws.
I'm going to get cancelled for my opinions on it.
You've said enough anyway on all the Facebook groups, so.
Yeah.
So we have a question here from MESBG Obsessed, wonderfully named there on Instagram, who is asking about the Army of Edoras versus the Defenders of the Hornburg. Which list is better in our view at 800 points, and which hero combinations would we recommend for each list? Would you like to kick this one off, Ali?
I wish you sent me this question like beforehand so I could work out this.
I didn't actually send. Oh fuck! I didn't actually send it to you, did I? Okay, well I will kick things off here because I have actually done a fair amount of list building and tinkering with both the.
Is this your bot account? Because you want me to give you an answer for this.
With both of these lists at kind of lower points and higher points, because this is my new project. I'm painting Foothan, as it were, at the moment. I actually have right here some of the newly packaged Rohan Warriors there for the Spotify listeners. But yeah, so at sort of 800 points, so like I guess looking at Defenders of the Hornburg first, so you can fit in obviously Helm and Hera and then 2 other heroes as well and get high model count still. So you can get Helm, Hera, Olwyn and a captain, so all 4 heroes, and still get 46 models. So you could obviously push higher with the model count, but the issue is that Helm, he can't lead any troops, so that's kind of the bottleneck there. So are these max warbands? I think these could be max warbands. And obviously in terms of troops, you don't really have much choices. You've got Warriors of Rohan and the riders. So I think I've got 3 or 4 riders in this list, so you can fit in the 4 heroes. I guess you could at 800 not take Helm.
I wouldn't.
Still. You could go Hera even at the higher points and take. There is Leaf, the named hero. I think no one's that sure yet on how good he exactly could be. You could go like double captain and get another full warband, maybe.
I think I would go double captain, get a full warband. Like the strength of that list is literally just going, I've got a butt ton of dominant 2 models.
Yeah.
I shall claim every objective. Come at me, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
so you can go Helm basically at 800 and still get a decent model count, but again, obviously you're a 5-3 D5 at best army. So that's kind of how Defenders sort of looks at 800. But then Army of Edoras so is sort of interesting because do you take Helm because you want the fight for Royal Guard route? But they are quite expensive for sort of what you get compared to something like Minas Tirith now. Or do you just go like Halith as your leader and then you can go with more of the smaller heroes? But I think in either combination, you can fit in the Frelath, the Frelf, or how
sort of free
and Hera combo. Yeah, you can fit those 2 specifically because they've got the Master of Battle synergy there. So you can fit, you can go whichever way you want, either helm leading. But if you go Halith, then you're capped out at fight 3. And if you're going for a fight 3 list, then maybe just go for Defenders of the Hornburg because you're
Yeah.
dominating everywhere. So
I think if you're going for Army of Edoras at 800, you're taking Helm.
you may as well
And
take Helm.
Helm is very good.
But like at 800, there's maybe you're paying like 25 points for his armored horse, which is a lot. And maybe there's more things that can just like negate that.
Yeah, like the way that I like to see it is like, so when people go, oh, if I take a 170-point herd, I just get shut down by magic. So they're going, one, it won't happen every turn. And two, wizards are kind of expensive and rarer these days.
Yeah.
Like, so if they're doing that with Saruman or Gandalf or whoever, you
Yeah.
kind of just got a 170-point trade-off, so you're not actually losing.
Yeah.
The key
I don't just
factor,
mean that, but like,
yeah.
being able to black dart the horse, or maybe there's more
Oh,
monsters that could hurl it, or maybe
but
there's
he's
like
got
piggies
pre-fate,
around.
remember, and Horse Lord in this
Yeah,
one.
I just, but like, you're paying a much higher investment for that horse.
Oh
where,
yeah,
yeah,
it's a high risk if you misuse him or it goes wrong. And you don't necessarily have to go for the horse if you don't want to. I think getting access to the D6 and the Fight 4 is incredibly important in that list.
yeah.
So I would still go Helm. Obviously, I haven't actually worked this out, but it'd probably be Helm and then 2 or 3 of the other heroes. And
So I've got a list here. So it's 800 points, 46 models, Helm on foot with 14 Royal Guard on foot, with no throwing spear. So at the front line, and then you've got Frelaf, Hera, neither of those two mounted, and the captain as well with a shield. 46 models with the 4 heroes, so none of them mounted, but you get the model count up. You've got the Royal Guard. 46 models is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's a solid list. You can also build it quite a few different ways.
Yeah.
I guess the main thing is, like, in my head, Defenders of the Hornburg is a horde, like pseudo horde. It's not necessarily Goblin Town. And so you're winning through attrition, and then the value in your troops sort of
But it's like,
counting as
can they
you do.
grind that well? That's sort of the thing. And like, we haven't really seen, we haven't had
So,
loads of these events at these points levels yet. So we haven't really seen, but like,
so I'm going to do a bit of a cop-out answer, which sounds a bit weird, but Army of Edoras is a better army to fight with and to win the game. Defenders of the Hornburg is probably better in the scenarios that we have at the moment.
Yeah.
Just because Defenders of the Hornburg, it's probably a bit easier to use, but you can get quite a lot of cav in that list with like bows, and then you've got loads of throwing spheres and stuff like that. It's very attritional. It probably won't be that interactive in sense of like tactical play, but I think if you go for like the mid 50 model count with that list, and say 12 of them are mounted riders of Rohan as well, you're looking pretty good.
Just with Hera as your leader, no one can run into you and strike. So like, you're not really gonna die.
So yeah, I'm gonna say Defenders. However, that doesn't mean Army of Edoras is actually worse. I just think Defenders is more reliable at what it's meant to do.
The jury's not 100% out on this one just yet, but yeah, you could do well with both at this point in time. Like, they both look pretty solid at 800. I think it's why I'm painting them up. I'm hoping they're going to be sort of decent because I'm spending lots of time painting them. So okay, but I think that is going to do it. That is going to close us out. So if you do have a question for next month, please do leave it in the comments down below here on YouTube, and we will select one for next month. That is going to close us out for this February edition of MESBG Monthly. We'll be back covering those events that we've talked about this episode that are upcoming, and then the upcoming events then for March as well. But I think it's going to close out. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching another episode of MESBG Monthly.